Hello and welcome to today's broadcast. Thanks for tuning in to anyone who has the inclination or interest in doing so. I'm Davina, and today I'm just wanting to talk to you briefly about Nashville and the core problem, which is the proliferation of lethal weapons, including military-grade weapons, in the United States of America as a consequence of distorted interpretations of the Second Amendment, and also a distorted political system that, whether or not everyone acknowledges it, has a thumb on the scale for voters coming from low population states, which, historically speaking, are disproportionately occupied by blue-collar, white, non-college educated voters. Rural versus urban. And the thumb on the scale is a function of provision in the American Constitution that was a conciliatory gesture towards slave owners who were reassured that urban, more industrialized areas wouldn't outvote the rural areas and outlaw slavery. Which they depended on for their significant profiteering at the expense of the lives and dignity and autonomy of the people who were enslaved into the chattel slavery system. So that fallout, that long historical fallout, has sometimes meant that the popular vote gets overruled by the weighting system of the electoral college system, which gives a little extra distorting influence to rural voters who live in low population states, who are just weighted, given an outsized weighting relative to their population levels. They're more likely to have relatively uninhabited large areas of farmed land. Farming was the core industry that derived incredible profit levels from the practice of enslavement. And here we are in modern day America, and everyone is suffering from being exposed to unnecessarily high rates of violence at the hands of people with access to guns who should not have easy access to guns. Unsafely secured guns, unregistered guns, uninsured guns. Sure, we don't have to depersonalize the problem. We don't have to say the problem is this inanimate object. The problem is giving people under-regulated access to those types of lethal objects. Hi, Christopher. Hi, Bob. Bob says, I really don't know if my heart can break. It's been broken so many times. Absolutely. We're all at risk of becoming desensitized or demotivated. And that's one of the tools of fascistic minoritarian oppression of a majority. So if your heart is breaking today, or even if it's just you can feel a tremor in a break that's broken and healed so many times, you're not even sure that you're capable of wholehearted emotion on the topic anymore. If you've just been so broken so many times over the lack of movement on this issue, know that that's part of the oppressor's toolbox. They want you to be discomforted so often that you become numb to the pain. Whereas we're trying to have a community, we're trying to have solidarity around the idea of staying open to that pain enough to keep motivated, enough to keep doing the work that we need to do to create safety for our children, for our communities, not just now, but going forwards into the future. This is an ongoing fight. It's good trouble. As Representative, it's escaped me, Representative John, Democratic Representative, okay, we'll Google him because he's obviously very famous and worthy of our attention. Democratic Representative. Good trouble. John Lewis. My apologies for forgetting his name in the moment. But yes, as John Lewis said, It is not the work of a day or a week. Ours is an ongoing struggle. Good trouble, get in good trouble, necessary trouble. Do not succumb to despair. Bob knows that for him it will always be devastating. Yes. I have gone through a lot of extremely guilty feelings for bringing my children to America when I know at a collective level it's not safe here, that the greatest killer of children and teenagers is now gun violence, and that's overtaken car accidents, even though the rate of car accidents has been rising over the last few years as well. So yes, there's still a lot of pedestrian accidents, car accidents, but even more than that, there are shootings that happen in America each day. There are mass shootings, multiple mass shootings a day, frequently unreported on unless they're remarkable for taking place in a school or for incurring a significant number of victims or for being at a public event. But there are mass shootings that meet the definition of 4 or more people killed every single day. We have a visitor who says the shooter has mental illness. Mental illness is not localized to the United States, but the problem of gun violence is, and that's a consequence of gun culture, the overproliferation of guns in the United States, the overproliferation and underregulation of guns in the United States, which is a consequence also of the against majority wishes, the domination of a certain demographic subset of the United States, and that is people addicted to white grievance culture, the false belief that white people have to be revered in order to be happy. White people have to be revered and have to be respected, and that we shouldn't teach accurate history. We shouldn't have an accurate interpretation of the Second Amendment. We shouldn't have an understanding that the Second Amendment was actually devised to empower militias, well-regulated militias, to have access to guns in order to better defend America against external enemies, but also with the slavery element of, yes, they were making room for local militias to pursue slaves who had fled captivity. That is an element to the Second Amendment also. Historians have delved into that, those background details, and there certainly were slave patrols. There certainly was a strong financial and societal incentive to maintain that hierarchy of racial order, whereby people who were slaves were discouraged from seeking their freedom, from fleeing captivity and the economy of economic exploitation and enslavement. So yes, there's definitely people with a long historical motivation for defending that status quo, for perpetuating that idea that Americans should be armed to the teeth. There's a new distorted version of the Second Amendment that's arisen in response to various white supremacy movements, and that's what I'll call the insurrection misinterpretation of the Second Amendment, the idea that Americans should be armed in order to potentially overthrow the government if it displeases them. Now, that insurrection argument is definitely promulgated by people like the people who set fire to their own compound in Waco, Texas. The former president who on the weekend held a rally in Waco, Texas, in order to remind people of that grievance culture, that idea that it's such federal government overreach to surround a compound that was acquiring weapons and wanting to perpetuate the dynamics of a sexually abusive cult that abused children and didn't want to obey the law of the United States. And one of the other parts of the fallout of Waco was, of course, the Oklahoma bombing conducted by Timothy McVeigh, someone who felt very much sympathy for the cult that David Koresh ordered to start fires and led to the deaths of many men, women, and children in that particular compound at that location. Yeah, so we do have a little bit of a cultist here with us today. Thanks, Patrick, for sharing your thoughts. No, the fire was fairly definitively set by David Koresh and his followers. The followers had foreknowledge of that fire. It's been quite robustly documented that they planned to have a fire, and that was David Koresh's agenda. It was a cult, so they, believed it was important and validating to die if aggressively contested by the federal government. Similarly to the Jim Jones compound, where Jim Jones was able to prevail on most of his followers to drink Kool-Aid laced with poisons in order to have that narrative play out of oppression by the government and the redemption through death. So yes, Bob is noting that some people want weapons so they can participate in illegal human hunting, as was conducted by those employed by slave patrols or employed within slave patrols. And he says he can imagine the type of people that would apply for that job. Yes. And we have one of them here now who's like, yes, I need to have my weapons, and presumably believes that he needs to do so because of a racial war, an impending racial war that he believes is coming, because he's projecting his own racial animosity and distrust of people of different skin color, diverse skin color, out onto the rest of the population or subsets of the population. Patrick, you should get therapy. It's really helpful. And then you can understand to differentiate yourself from the people around you and stop attributing your hateful worldview and framework onto other people, because Black people predominantly want to get along, want to take advantage of the technological developments, the opportunity, and the latent wealth potential in the United States. Yes, it's built on a basis of a history where America achieved greatness and geopolitical might in part through profiteering from slavery. But now there is a lot of opportunity and wealth and opportunities for entrepreneurs and people who contribute and innovate to reap the rewards of the United States for themselves through working together, through being cooperative, not through advocating for deregulating weapons or obstructing legislation that would regulate weapons, that would potentially ban military-grade weapons from the civilian population, and those types of things that would enhance community safety, that would put our children at less risk of being slaughtered in their own schools where they should be safe, our children being sitting duck targets for people who, yes, potentially have mental illnesses, are sociopathic, have grudges, have any type of mental problems, but who should not have access to unregulated guns, who should not have access to improperly secured guns, who should not have access to guns without passing a national background check that is robust, that is enforced, that does enough to mitigate the risk of mass shootings, enough to mitigate the risk of deadly outbreaks of gun violence, such as we saw today in Nashville, Tennessee. Oh, we got Pumpkin. We got Pumpkin having a lot of comments saying it's got nothing to do with race. Sure, buddy. And what's your position on race? Yeah, do you want to come clean about what you think about that? Because I'm just familiar with a type of person who says the kind of things you say. I'm not familiar with you personally, but tell us, maybe you're an exception to that pattern, and that's fine, but it seems unlikely. Expand to us what you think about race and the dynamics of race in the United States. Are you, in fact, accumulating a stockpile of weapons just in case what you believe to happen starts happening tomorrow? Are you a prepper with a cache of military-grade weapons because you think Old Testament style Black people may seek retribution and try and enslave white people the way Black people were enslaved for centuries in the United States? What's your view on that? Oh, you're also a little Putin Putin puppy. Well, thanks. No, Russia's army is actually very debilitated by corruption. So yes, they're obviously much bigger than Ukraine and have a bigger economy than Ukraine. And Ukraine is being helped intermittently by various European countries that understand the threat posed to European safety by invading expansionist, imperialist, aggressive Russia, the Russian government, and with the support of a significant amount of the Russian population. And it's also being helped by the United States. Ukraine is allies with the United States, and there have been various undertakings to secure Ukraine's safety. Oh, this dude is too many things. Okay, yes, banks are a little bit problematic at the moment, but action's being taken to try and help prevent them from failing. But yes, over speculative activity is a problem. Which political party has opposed the regulation of banks and has obstructed the regulation of banks and has wound back the regulation of banks? Would that be the Republican Party, little Putin puppy pet? It would be. Yeah, I'm tired of him, but that's okay because I have to go anyway. Thank you so much, and take care. Lordy. I don't know what Christopher was saying that about, but I'm sure it was something good. It was lovely to see you today, Bob, Christopher. Thank you so much for your consistent presence and for your engagement and for your spirit. Take care, everyone. Even you, Patrick, we don't wish you harm. We just hope you're getting a good rate of pay if you're a Putin bot. And if you're just somebody who's stupid and gullible enough to just do that for no financial recompense at all, not even like free Coke or free Pepsi, whatever it is you take payment as in the form of, good day to you, sir. We hope you have a better destination on your journey than the place you chose to sit in today. It stinks. Take care. Bye-bye.